2001 statistics were published yesterday by the ONS. Where do you see the Jewish community, say, in 10 years' time? And has the JRC been able to look at their findings?
We obviously, as you say, the first tranche of results only came out yesterday, and the first tranche of census results really don't include the level of granularity that one would require to start making analyses and assessments of the state of the UK Jewish community. I think those are the pieces of work that will need to be done when the second, third and fourth tranches of data come out. We've been working in partnership to help construct a funding package for the Jewish Policy Research Institute, led by John Boyd, to do two things. Number one, to be able to, in a sustained way, carry out a serious and detailed analysis of the relevant census data when it becomes available, but also to ensure that in parallel with the census data becoming available, a national Jewish community survey takes place, exploring issues and attitudes and giving us for the first time a set of data that can be overlaid with the census information and start to help inform the leaders of our community to take the kind of decisions that need to be taken. I think the place where census data will come into its own is in helping us and helping our leaders to address some of the big questions. What should be the nature of funding for long-term elderly care moving forward? As a community, one of the challenges we face is that we have 50% more over 70s than the wider population. We need hard demographic facts and data in order to be able to plan appropriate future provision for care for the elderly, which has always been a hallmark and exemplar of what our community does well. We need to understand the trends in terms of Jewish day school provision, in terms of where synagogues and other kosher facilities need to be situated, and I think that the census data will give us an absolute minefield, a gold mine, if you like, of information. And one of the priorities that we have set to us across the community since the JLC was created is to try and create a model of a community that takes decisions based on hard data and evidence rather than anecdotal, the feelings of this or that individual, which all too often has been the case in UK Jewry and left us with sort of white elephants or large amounts of money being invested in projects that the community 10 years down the line say is not what was needed. So the census data will be incredibly valuable. I think we're just at the very early stages of starting to see some of it emerge, and the work that JPR will be undertaking to make that census data relevant to the needs and long-term planning of our community is critical.
Do you think maybe in 10 years' time, maybe synagogue life won't be the central pillar of the Jewish community?
I think that there is something about Anglo Jewry or British Jewry, to be more accurate, whereby synagogue life has always been a backbone, and I think that there's nothing to indicate that that won't remain the case. But I think that as we have now, the core role played by a plethora of other national, regional and local Jewish institutions will continue to increase. And
they have a very important role to play, don't they?
That's right, and I think that we increasingly live in an age of partnerships, and I think that the way forward, as we're starting to see, for example, will be partnerships between organisations like Jewish Care in Norwood and the synagogues at local or institutional grouping level to ensure that the wide array of provision that's required for our community in the future exists. I think the current economic climate also dictates the need to leverage and get the best out of limited charitable resources, and by synagogue bodies working in partnership with expert providers of care or Israel support or other facilities that our community requires, hopefully we will sort of continue to enjoy the vast array of services that we currently do. One of the paradoxes about UK Jewish life is, depending on which figures and which demographers you listen to, we've either declined or hit a plateau numerically, but at the same time levels of engagement and activity and affiliation appear to be increasing. You just need to look at examples like the success of Jewish Book Week, of Limud, of the outreach organisations providing adult education services around northwest and northeast London, the explosion in take-up of places at Jewish day schools, to see that whatever the bottom line in terms of the numerical size of our community, we continue to be a community that inspires and innovates and perhaps engages people to a degree that we've never seen before in the history of this community.
Would the JLC like to represent all sectors of the Jewish community? And if so, is it possible to do so when there are such diverse views on how to do things?
The JLC is not really a representative body. A number of our member organisations, primarily the Board of Deputies, act as the sort of elected representative body of the community. What the JLC does is reflect the institutional landscape of the community. We represent our member organisations, nothing more and nothing less. We have a range of member organisations that span every sector of Jewish life in the UK. Synagogue life, from progressive through to orthodox,
but not
the
right
social
wing,
care sector.
Not the right wing, though.
I don't think it's helpful to sort of talk about the right wing and the left wing. In the work of the JLC, we are confident that we certainly make every provision that we can to include all sections of the community. Many of our member organisations, I'm thinking again of organisations like Jewish Care, are actively providing services of critical importance to the Haredi community, that I think who you're referring to, on a daily basis. Services that community is in desperate need of and is unable to fund from within itself. Increasingly we see children from that sector of the community taking up places in what some would call mainstream Jewish day schools. We see a scenario in which our new schools division, Pages, Partnerships for Jewish Schools, is working actively with the right wing, as you termed it, on terms of strictly orthodox school sector, to save them money in terms of central purchasing, to help them develop systems and processes to ensure that their teachers are fully trained. So, I'm confident that across the body of our work, there's every opportunity and in many cases active ongoing engagement with that section of the community. Of course, ultimately it's a matter for them, the extent to which they decide to engage with the mainstream. It's a matter for them as to how they sort of wish to go about playing their part.
Would you like them to have a more involvement with the JLC?
I think we would. And I think that together with most of our member organisations, we recognise that it's a sector of the community that is growing. It's a sector of the community that faces particular challenges, certainly around those of an economic nature. We are ultimately one community. We are one Jewish people, and it's important that we look for opportunities to sort of bolster that conception of one community in any way that we can. And I think it's about mainstream institutions being sensitive as to the type of service provision that they're able to deliver, and there are certainly areas in which engagement will be difficult. But back in 2007-2008. When we set up our Commission on Jewish Schools, there were people who said to us, there is no way that the Haredi sector will engage with the mainstream on a project that involves Jewish education. And with a little bit of creative thinking, a little bit of fancy footwork, and most importantly, the desire to provide a holistic picture that each sector of the community would extract some value from, we were reasonably successful in not only engaging with but also delivering for that segment of the community. And we're very proud that our education division, our schools division, Pages, Partnerships for Jewish Schools, continues in its work to sort of implement those recommendations and sort of has a very sort of both deep and broad engagement with the many different segments of the Haredi community, which after all, in and of itself, is not monolithic.